known as...
A big focal point of this new universe is how lived in it is and the established world building already seen in projects like Creature Commandos. No need for a Superman or Batman origin movie. People in third world countries could probably tell you both of their origin stories. It seems like some heroes will be more established than others, but I wouldn't be surprised if there will be a new age of heroes out and about that differs from any crime fighters that might have come before in the canonical DCU timeline. Creature Commandos takes place around 2 years after the events of The Suicide Squad, given how both Amanda Waller and Rick Flag Sr. mentioned characters or events that occurred in that movie.
It's one of the few soldiers still alive from Project Starfish in Corto Maltese.
She and I had a son when we were just 18. Boy, was an improvement on me in every way. He passed on about 2 years back.
James Gunn went on record clarifying that the entirety of Peacemaker Season 1 is canon to the DCU, minus the Justice League cameo with the DCEU versions, as this is not a continuation of that universe. Even if it wasn't stated, we see John Economos still recovering from his injury from the butterfly invasion at the end of Peacemaker.
My God! Oh, shit!
What happened to your leg?
Well, I was fighting off an alien invasion.
Why the fuck you lying?
I hope people recognize that the DCU is not a soft reboot or a slight continuation of the DCEU. It's an entirely separate continuity that's doing its own thing. Incorporating events from The Suicide Squad and Peacemaker just means that those projects that occurred in the DCEU also similarly occurred in the DCU timeline. It's like the continuity reboots the comics do from time to time. The New 52 was a complete reboot of DC Comics, where the titular heroes in the Justice League were about 5 years younger. Characters like Wonder Woman had brand new origin stories, but Batman was kept relatively the same. Basically, a lot of the nonsense Batman went through prior to New 52 also happened in the New 52, but in a more condensed history. In any adaptations or in reboots, there are certain events that remain consistent in a character's mythos. Storylines like Batman Nightfall are constantly referenced in DC canon, or how Marv Wolfman and George Perez's 1980s run on Teen Titans contained a lot of elements that remained integral with modern DC continuity, even though that run began before the Crisis on Infinite Earths reboot. Comics will sometimes refer back to stories that were released before some grand reboot, thus making a certain story or comic issue now canon to whatever the most recent iteration of the continuity is. In this case, the DCU version of Peacemaker experienced events very similar to those of his DCEU counterpart. When crafting an interconnected DC universe, one of the most important elements you have to focus on is establishing how fantastical and comic booky things are, and not shy away from those wackier elements, because it is based off of comic books at the end of the day. It's cool to see how prevalent metahumans are in the society of the DCU and how they've existed for a long time. Regular people are fully aware of the existence of metahumans and how they're practically the norm. You'll see some random dude reading an explicit magazine with a metahuman theme going on, or notice how likely metahumans could be roaming the streets.
Hey, Fatto!
Metahuman. And metahumans are welcome. They cannot use their powers on premises.
Gunn had mentioned creating an incredibly detailed world map, cementing the different cities and locations from the source material where heroes operate. So far from what we know in Superman and Creature Commandos, the cities confirmed in the DCU obviously include locations like Gotham City, Metropolis, and Themyscira, with mentions of areas like Star City and Bloodhaven. I'm assuming Wonder Woman may already be a public figure, or at least operating as a crime fighter of sorts, if the general public is now becoming aware of Themyscira and that it's an island of warrior women. Circe herself in this iteration is a rogue Amazon who claims to be the rightful heir to the throne of Themyscira. I'm really hoping the Wonder Woman prequel show, Paradise Lost, that's set to be a Game of Thrones kind of show centered on the Amazons, will show Circe's turn in her backstory. Wouldn't be surprised if that show ends with Diana's birth, since it was stated the series will take place prior to her birth. If they wrap it up similarly to Wonder Woman Historia, where Diana's mother Hippolyta molds her from clay and the gods bring her to life, you might have yourself a banger. For the most part, I really enjoyed the first season of Creature Commandos. It's got a visually appealing art style and animation, something you can't say for some of the DC animated movies as of late. Definitely one of the better DC animated shows in recent years, but a few issues I have pertain to the ending and how everything kind of wrapped up. It left some things to be desired. So it turns out Circe was right in her future vision of Princess Alana Rostovic wanting to start World War III and kill all the superheroes. That's why Circe was on a mission to kill the princess in the first place, and the Creature Commandos were initially assigned with the task of of protecting the princess. Once Amanda Waller sees Circe's vision after the creature commandos subdued Circe, Waller sends them back to Pokolistan to kill the princess and prevent the destruction of the world. I always wondered how the survival of the princess would lead to her and Gorilla Grodd somehow killing everyone in DC. Like, how in the hell did she overpower the likes of Superman, Guy Gardner, Starfire, Hawkgirl, and Wonder Woman? She manifested this whole scheme in teaming up with Clayface to shapeshift into Professor McPherson, who's an expert in things pertaining to Themyscira. She was the one who verified Circe's vision of being truthful and supporting Amanda Waller's suspicions.
She's not able to imagine futures. I don't see how what she showed you could be anything other than genuine.
Clayface transformed into her after the real professor talked to Waller, with the sole purpose of Rick Flag finding out about Clayface and getting the wrong idea that the professor was lying this whole time and that Circe was just tricking Waller into killing the princess, which we obviously know isn't true because Circe was being truthful and the princess was indeed evil. My problem with the princess, I guess, being this secret antagonist is that she doesn't really have any clear motivation. Why does she want to start World War III and take over the world? Some of the narrative resolutions left some questions I didn't think would be left unanswered. Once the bride figured out the princess's entire plan and deception, she shoots her in the head and that's the end of that plot. How does the nation of Pokolistan react to the princess being killed? Were they ever informed on her true plans for world domination afterwards? There was no update on Circe after episode 4, so I'm assuming she's still being locked up in Belle Reve. Clayface straight up blew Rick Flag Sr.'s back out in their fight at the professor's house, and the last time we see him, he's still in recovery. But I guess Rick Flag recovers in time for his appearance in Superman and major role in Peacemaker season 2. I think the episodes would have benefited from being a bit longer in runtime to further flesh out the plot and give us some more time with some of the characters. Nina Mazursky does nothing throughout the entire course of the show. She serves no narrative purpose other than uplifting the bride's emotional side. We don't see her tragic backstory until the final episode, and by the time we do, she gets shanked like she's Arthur Fleck. I mean, it's sad and heartfelt, but they really didn't do much with her character.
What use is she walking around in a fishbowl?
Get her in water, it's a different story.
Since Nina is said to be the smartest and most reasonable of the bunch, Amanda Waller says she could help Rick Flag in keeping the rest of the creature commandos in line. But she doesn't really do that. She never prevents the team from crossing the line or stops them from committing heinous atrocities. The only exception to this is her dynamic with the bride.
You're always so hyperbolically violent. You need therapy.
It's because I was saving you again, idiot.
Because you are, my friend.
With Creature Commandos having been renewed for a second season featuring the bride leading a new team, which includes King Shark from the Suicide Squad, they're just one of the several factions or teams that will be given screen time in the DCU. We already know the Green Lantern Corps exists thanks to the Lantern Show. There's Team Peacemaker featured in Peacemaker Season 2. The Authority are still on track to be getting a theatrical movie. The Brave and the Bold is set to have an extensive Bat family. Guy Gardner, Mr. Terrific, and Hawkgirl all seem to have some connection to Maxwell Lord and Lord Tech if they're jackets are of any indication. It seems like they might be fleshing out the other characters of the DC universe before fully committing to a proper Justice League team-up movie, considering James Gunn stated that the Justice League don't even exist yet. A live-action Teen Titans movie is currently in development, and there has been some speculation on the potential roster of that movie, with some thinking the roster will resemble that of the Teen Titans cartoon. From a business perspective, it wouldn't be all that surprising if they wanted to go that route, as that is the most popular and recognizable version of the team. There is no strong evidence of this actually being the case since it's just a rumor, but I would preferably want a roster with some of the founding members in the comics like Donna Troy and Wally West. Funnily enough, one of the executive producers of Creature Commandos, Dean Morey, essentially confirmed that Wally West Kid Flash is somewhere in the background during the montage of all the dead heroes in Circe's vision.
Are you able to confirm any of those silhouettes? Like, I was surprised to see what seems to clearly be Starfire. And I'm pretty confident I saw like a Wally West Teen Titan Flash off to the right.
Yeah.
Are those, did I see that right?
Yeah.
This is exactly what I've been waiting for. This is exactly, I don't mean to sound like Cat Williams, but this is exactly what I've been waiting for.
I don't know where Wally West is supposed to be, but you can clearly see Starfire's design, so I guess that's two confirmed members of the Teen Titans. In terms of roster, I'd always assumed they were going for a more Teen Titans Rebirth iteration, where Damian Wayne as Robin had his own Teen Titans team, which consisted of Wallace West as Kid Flash, not the traditional Wally West. Or, you know,
The Black
God!
You also had Beast Boy, Raven, Starfire, and Aqualad. Not to mention, it seems like Starfire in that vision was rocking her rebirth costume, but the designs of these characters are subject to change, and it's more so a good estimate of what they might look like in live action. So what we've seen so far is not definitive. This wouldn't apply to characters who will appear in Superman like Hawk Girl, since we've seen their actual designs prior to Creature Commandos.
Batman and stuff, so I would just love to know, did you already consider these are sort of designs for future projects, or is this...
Some of them.
Okay.
Some of them. Some of them, yes. And some of them, you know, listen, we had to take an educated guess. We have a lot of steps to go through with some of the characters, and other of the characters we've kind of designed. So, yes, some of them are kind of an educated guess. I wouldn't take everything as, you know, if you see certain characters, I'm not going to take that every single one of them is going to look like that in their physical incarnations down the road. But it's not far off.
The actual Robin of choice, however, could vary depending on when the movie comes out. Because if Teen Titans releases before The Brave and the Bold, then Damian can't be Robin in Teen Titans, because The Brave and the Bold is Damian's introduction to the DCU and the Bat family. That movie might not be coming out for a bit, as the current director for the movie, Andy Muschietti, said in a podcast how they don't plan to release The Batman Part 2 and The Brave and the Bold around the same time, and The Batman Part 2 isn't coming out until 2027, while also confirming that the DCU's Batman and Robert Pattinson's portrayal seen in the Matt Reeves universe are completely separate. So if Teen Titans were to hypothetically release before The Brave and the Bold, it could be set a few years prior with Dick Grayson as Robin on the verge of becoming Nightwing, because if you have a Starfire and a Waly West Kid Flash, I don't want a scenario where Dick Grayson is Nightwing as an adult but those other characters are still teenagers. That would be a gargantuan fumble. As for Superman, he's apparently going to be the same age as the actor playing him, David Cornsweet, so around 31 years old. While not an origin story, the movie will center on an earlier part of Superman's life, so my guess he's been doing this for maybe a few years at this point. Him and Batman are known figures this far into the timeline, which I'd imagine Batman is probably more experienced since The Brave and the Bold will feature an extended Bat family. But there could be a time gap coinciding with real time to have Superman closer in age with a Batman who's experienced, as The Brave and the Bold probably won't come out until 2028 or 2029 at the earliest. In terms of the core cast, it seems like Clark and Lois already know each other quite well, all things considered. The plot will incorporate the classic tale of Lex Luthor believing that his viewpoint is what's best for humanity, and while he hates Superman with a passion, they don't really know each other personally yet. Both Jonathan and Martha Kent are still alive at some point during the film's events. We know this for a fact as we see Kent in the teaser trailer, and both him and Martha were cast sometime last year. I'm curious to see the differences between the Woman of Tomorrow movie adaptation and the 8-issue miniseries. The book has Kara celebrating her 21st birthday by going to a planet with a red sun so that she can get drunk. We know in the DCU she's been on Earth for at least a few years by this point. When first revealing the partial slate of Chapter 1, Gunn described the differences between Superman and Supergirl, emphasizing how Kara watched everyone around her die and be killed in terrible ways for the first 14 years of her life, then come to Earth. So I'm wondering whether she would have actually stayed on Earth 7 years prior to Woman of Tomorrow and the Superman movie, or what they'll probably do and just make her physical age younger in the actual movie instead of being 21 years old. I'm just glad we don't have to wait that long to get this universe up and running. Lex Luthor already hates Superman and is causing some problems. Batman is finally gonna have a Bat family after decades of directors and creatives refusing to incorporate the character of Robin in their movies. The Green Lanterns have already made their stance as prominent protectors of Earth. Guy Gardner is probably an experienced Lantern, and we know Hal Jordan will be a Lantern legend in the upcoming Lanterns HBO series, while Jon Stewart is the new recruit and Hal serves as more of a mentor figure. It's only a matter of time before we get to see these characters cross over in World's Finest or Justice League type movies.
Saying my favorite character is Batman, I love him, and I can't wait for people to see more of him, along with Superman. And together.
If this new Superman movie slaps, we might be eating good for the next few years.
Tonight, right here in Dallas, we see the dawn of a new day, the beginning of a new age, and a time where the Cowboys will rightfully regain and take their proper spot among kings. Do you hear me? Regain and take their proper spot among the kings. I'm just letting you know, baby. That's right, baby.